We often assume that being smarter makes life much easier to navigate. However, for many high-achieving minds, the exact opposite is often true. Psychology shows that high intelligence does more than just help you solve problems. It fundamentally shifts how you perceive and value every social interaction you have. Imagine standing at a party, surrounded by laughter and constant, flowing conversation. Yet you feel like an observer watching a movie in a foreign language. This feeling is caused by what researchers call a cognitive mismatch. Your brain is wired to prioritize deep patterns and complex data points. But standard social rituals are built on simple emotional mirroring and small talk. When your internal speed is out of sync with the room, friction happens. You end up exhausted by the very things that seem to energize others. It is not that you lack social skills or any capacity for empathy. It is simply that your threshold for what feels meaningful is much higher. As a result, casual small talk feels like a script you forgot to memorize. You might start withdrawing just to protect your peace and mental energy. Today, we are exploring the psychological barriers that keep intelligent people separate. We will look at how pattern recognition and logic create invisible social walls. And more importantly, how you can bridge that gap on your own terms. This mismatch isn't a flaw in your character, but a feature of your cognition. Understanding this can be the first step toward finding your own tribe. Have you ever been in a room where everyone is laughing at a joke that feels completely empty? Psychology shows that high intelligence is often linked to hyperactive pattern recognition. Your brain is a biological machine built to find deep structure in complex systems. Think about the last time a coworker spent 10 minutes talking about the weather. While they enjoy the simple social bond, your mind is scanning for deep information. Cognitive psychology calls this a high need for closure, or the drive for definitive answers. Since small talk has no real system to solve, your brain hears it as loud static. This creates a very specific type of mental exhaustion that others rarely experience. You aren't being stuck up, you are simply starving for a higher level of data processing. When the conversation stays shallow, your pattern-seeking mind essentially has nothing to chew on. You might find yourself analyzing the acoustics of the room rather than the gossip being shared. This intellectual understimulation feels like physical confinement to a fast-moving mind. Others see you as distant, but you are actually just hunting for a meaningful signal. You want to talk about why things happen, while others just discuss what happened. It's like being a chess grandmaster, invited to play a game of tic-tac-toe for hours. The result is a constant feeling of being overprepared for a world that stays shallow. If you often feel bored in crowds, it is your natural talent working against you. This mismatch in speed isn't just about topics, it's about the very timing of thought. When your internal clock runs faster, the world starts to feel like slow motion. You end up waiting for the world to catch up, which breeds a silent, lonely frustration. Your brain is designed to filter out the noise and find the signal. When there is no signal to find, the cognitive effort of staying present becomes painful. Even when you try to connect, you might feel like you are speaking a different language. Psychology calls this asynchronous development, where mental speed outpaces the social environment. Your brain is ready to process complex ideas before others have finished their opening sentence. Think about a time you shared a quick observation and the group just stared back. To them, you skipped 10 steps in a conversation that they still need to walk through. You have already reached the conclusion while they are still trying to define the problem. This creates a constant feeling of being out of sync with the rhythm of the group. You eventually start to slow yourself down on purpose just to keep others from being confused. The result is a subtle, nagging boredom that follows you into every social interaction. Your brain is starving for stimulation, while the conversation feels stuck in low gear. You find yourself nodding to stories that you already predicted 5 minutes ago. This mismatch in processing speed makes the simple give and take of talking feel like labor. You might finish people's sentences in your head and wait impatiently for them to speak. Over time, you avoid small talk because the mental effort is too high to sustain. It often feels easier to be alone than to pretend you are interested in a slow story. When you pull back, others misinterpret your distance as being aloof or disinterested. In reality, the opposite is true. You crave depth, but the social pacing is off. You end up in a cycle where your intelligence creates a wall against connection. This asynchrony is a hallmark of giftedness that is often mistaken for a social deficit. You aren't broken, you are simply navigating a world set to different tempo. This struggle becomes harder when you try to bridge emotional gaps with pure logic. The friction gets even worse when you try to solve a social problem with pure logic. Psychology shows that human interactions aren't usually about exchanging data or truth. Instead, they are about emotional regulation, using others to help us feel secure. Highly intelligent people often have a rationality bias that treats talk like an equation. Imagine a friend venting about a bad day, and you immediately offer a 5-step solution. In your mind, fixing the problem is the ultimate way to show you care about them. But to them, your logic feels like a cold dismissal of their actual feelings. Cognitive psychology suggests this happens because you prioritize accuracy over affiliation. While you are busy being right, the other person simply feels you are being robotic. This creates an effective mismatch where your tone doesn't align with the room's energy. You might correct someone's minor fact during a story, not realizing it kills the mood. Over time, people stop coming to you for support because they expect a lecture. You end up feeling like an outsider in your own friend groups or at your workplace. It is a lonely experience when your greatest tool, your mind, keeps pushing others away. The reality is that your brain is just optimized for a different kind of problem solving. But when you use a logic hammer on a glass vase, things tend to break. You eventually realize that being right is a poor substitute for being understood. This ongoing social friction creates a heavy pressure to hide your true nature. Social intelligence requires recognizing that logic is only one tool in the human toolkit. Failing to see the emotional subtext makes you a stranger to the people right in front of you. You trade your authenticity for a quiet seat at a table where you don't belong. The deepest cost of high intelligence is the exhausting effort of hiding yourself from others. Psychology calls this social masking, where you consciously change your behavior to match. You might find yourself simplifying your words or pretending to care about boring topics. Think of sitting in a meeting where you see the solution, yet you stay silent. You wait for others to catch up because you don't want to seem intimidating. This constant self-editing requires a massive amount of mental energy and focus. When you mask, you are running a heavy second program in the background of your mind. This leads to social burnout, where even a simple dinner party feels like a workday. Over time, you start to feel like an imposter who is just acting out a role. If people only like the fake version of you, you never feel truly accepted. You laugh at jokes you don't find funny just to keep the social peace. You end up surrounded by friends, yet feeling more alone than if you were solo. Psychology suggests that this lack of authenticity is a primary driver of chronic stress. The tragic irony is that by trying so hard to belong, you lose your sense of self. You begin to wonder if anyone would actually value the depth you are locking away. Hiding your intelligence feels like living in a house with the ceilings built too low. The energy spent on maintenance could be energy spent on creation. Every time you bite your tongue, you reinforce the idea that you aren't enough. But what if the goal isn't to blend in, but to find a different room entirely? For a long time, you might have felt like a broken puzzle piece in the wrong box. Psychology suggests that the problem isn't your personality, but your environment. This is niche construction, where organisms modify their surroundings to better suit their traits. Instead of shrinking your intellect, you should be looking for a more complex habitat. Consider a specialized engineer who feels like an alien at a neighborhood party. They struggle with small talk because their brain is wired for deep problem solving. But when that person enters a high-level research lab, the social friction disappears. They didn't change their personality, they changed the intellectual density of the room. When you stop seeking mass appeal, you start filtering for quality over quantity. You might realize that your social anxiety was actually just a lack of shared interest. Evolutionary psychology suggests we seek tribes that share our cognitive niche. For you, that tribe might be in specialized hobbies, academia, or creative circles. Finding one person who speaks your mental language is worth 1,000 shallow acquaintances. This shift moves you from being difficult to being a highly valued peer. Ask yourself if you are trying to grow in soil that was never meant for you. True belonging doesn't require you to cut off your own wings to fit in a cage. It is the realization that fitting in and truly belonging are two very different things. Once you stop compromising your depth, the world actually starts to look for you. Success in a cognitive niche feels like finally coming home after a long journey. Your intelligence becomes a bridge to others, rather than a wall that divides you. You likely know the quiet ache of being the only person who sees the hidden problem. Psychology shows that high intelligence shifts your focus toward objective facts. This means you aren't failing at being social, you are just seeking different information. When you stop forcing yourself to fit in, you save the energy needed to solve real problems. Research suggests finding a specialized niche is better than being liked by everyone. You might always feel like an observer watching the world from a slight distance. That distance is exactly what allows you to offer insights that others cannot see. Think about the times your unique perspective helped someone through a crisis. Your true belonging lies in the value you provide, not the small talk you mimic. The feeling of being different doesn't mean you are broken or unwanted. It means you are operating on a frequency that requires a more specific receiver. You are a vital part of the social ecosystem, precisely because you see what others miss. Embrace the solitude that comes with depth, as it is the birthplace of all great ideas. Your mind is not a burden to be hidden, but a gift to be shared with the right audience. Ultimately, the goal isn't to change your mind to fit the world, but to find the world that needs your mind.